Inheritance, Book 1 of the Veilwalker series, brought to you by Storypulse Studios, where imagination comes to life.
Chapter 4, Inheritance. Tyson sat at his kitchen counter, hands wrapped around a mug that had gone cold an hour ago. Outside, dawn was doing its thing, bleeding gold across glass and steel, turning Manhattan into something out of a tourism ad. Beautiful, completely wasted on him. The apartment felt wrong, not different in any way he could point to, just off, like someone had shifted everything 3 inches to the left while he wasn't looking. Same creaking floorboard by the window, same water stain on the ceiling he kept meaning to report, all exactly where it should be, which somehow made it worse. If I can appear in my office without walking there, where else might I end up? 3 empty mugs cluttered the sink, evidence of a night spent staring at his laptop, scrubbing through Ring security footage frame by frame, looking for the glitch that would make this make sense. His tongue tasted like burnt metal. His eyes felt like hot coals. Nothing. The cameras showed nothing. Maybe this is what losing your mind feels like. Completely convincing. Internally consistent. Except I was there, bare feet on cold tile, the security panel blinking green. The rational explanations had officially run out. He closed the laptop and pressed his palms against his eyes. The pressure helped with the burning, did nothing for the chaos spinning behind his ribs. What if it happens again? What if next time I materialize in traffic? Underwater? Someone's bedroom? Outside, the city woke up. Sirens, the hydraulic wheeze of a garbage truck, a car alarm cycling through its greatest hits. Normal sounds, the soundtrack of thousands of people starting ordinary days, completely unaware that reality had apparently decided physics were optional. Tyson pushed himself up from the counter. His back protested, joints that felt twice their age after hours hunched over a laptop. The coffee wasn't helping anymore. His thoughts had started looping, covering the same mental ground like a dog circling before lying down. He showered on autopilot, letting the water scald his shoulders. Steam filled the bathroom until he couldn't see the mirror, just a silhouette of himself in the fog. The soap smelled like every generic men's body wash ever made, something with sport on the label that he grabbed without thinking 3 years ago. Normal. Boring. Everything his life was supposed to be. The hot water didn't wash away the feeling that the world had fundamentally broken. When he toweled off, his reflection emerged from the clearing mirror. Same face, same dark hair that never sat right in the morning. Nothing to mark him as different from anyone else on the street. No glowing eyes or mysterious symbols, just a guy who apparently could teleport in his sleep. Great superpower. Really useful. He paused at the closet, eyeing the go bag Ulrich had made him pack years ago. Cash, first aid supplies, changes of clothes, emergency rations, portable chargers, copies of documents. For years he'd maintained it the way other people maintain gym memberships, out of guilt and the vague sense he should, rolling his eyes every time he rotated the supplies. Maybe Ulrich wasn't paranoid. He wasn't going to the office today. The email to Kessler had been brief. Family emergency, working remotely, sorry for the inconvenience. First time in 3 years he'd asked to work from home. It would raise questions, but fewer than showing up looking like he'd spent the night fighting insomnia and losing. The practical part of his brain, the part that had earned him steady promotions, started cataloging work tasks. Singapore distribution model due Monday. Miami warehouse discrepancies. Quarterly forecast next week. I'm worried about spreadsheets while my understanding of reality collapses. There's something funny about that. He measured coffee grounds into the machine, 1 scoop per cup, the gurgle of water filtering through, the smell gradually filling the kitchen. For maybe 30 seconds, he could pretend today was normal. The coffee maker had just finished brewing when 3 sharp knocks hit his door. Tyson froze. Not the doorman's pattern. James always did 2 quick taps, pause, then a third. Not the super's rhythm when he checked smoke alarms. 3 evenly spaced knocks. Deliberate. Professional. Who knows I'm home? I should be at work. He moved to the door silently. The peephole showed a man in the hallway, late 30s, gray courier uniform with no company logo, no package, no signature pad, just an envelope in his hand. His posture was wrong, too rigid for someone who delivered things for a living, too focused on the door, like he knew Tyson was watching. No logo, no scanner, no ID badge. Building protocol requires deliveries through the front desk. James would have called up. So how did this guy get to my floor? He could ignore it. The man had already seen the peephole darken. That ship had sailed. He could call building security. Could be nothing. Could be connected to last night. Either way, I need to know. The kitchen knife block was 7 steps away. Too far. The umbrella by the door. Closer, not much of a weapon. You're overreacting. It's just a courier. There's no such thing as just a courier. Not after last night. He opened the door, weight balanced. Another gift from Auric's training, always be ready to move. Tyson Volt? The courier's voice was flat. His eyes were an unusual shade of amber, almost golden under the fluorescent lights. No expression, no tells. That's me. The man extended the envelope. Yellowed paper, worn at the edges. No courier markings. No tracking number. Just his name in flowing script that tugged at something in the back of his mind. What is this? Delivery. The man's face revealed nothing. Not bored, not impatient, not friendly. Just blank, like whoever was supposed to be behind those eyes had clocked out early. From whom? I just deliver. Tyson took the envelope carefully. Old paper, thick and substantial. As his fingers closed around it, the courier's expression shifted fractionally. A subtle relaxation, like checking off a box on a very important list. I need to see ID. Delivery complete. The courier turned and walked toward the elevators without another word. Smooth, controlled, not hurried, not worried, just moving with purpose. That's not normal. Wait! Tyson stepped into the hallway. The courier was already rounding the corner. Tyson covered the distance in 6 strides. When he reached the intersection, the man was gone. Impossible. The elevator indicator showed it descending from the 12th floor. Hadn't reached this level yet. The stairwell door was closed, fire alarm silent. The hallway stretched empty in both directions. He couldn't have, like I did. A chill crawled up his spine. 2 impossible things in 24 hours, and this one involved someone else. Someone who'd known exactly where to find him on a day when he should have been at work, who'd vanished the same way Tyson had. Not a coincidence. Tyson returned to his apartment, securing the door, all 3 deadbolts plus the chain. Small protections against a world that apparently didn't care about locks or physics, but the routine was comforting. The envelope sat on the counter. Ordinary paper, extraordinary timing. He examined it under the bright kitchen lights. No return address. His name in that flowing script. The postmark was faded but legible. October 17th, 18 years ago. Tyson took a knife from the drawer and carefully sliced the envelope open. Inside was a single sheet of yellowed paper. When he unfolded it, a Polaroid slipped out, colors muted by time, white borders slightly yellowed. A woman held an infant, dark hair falling around a face bright with joy. Behind her stood a man, hand on her shoulder, expression serious but eyes soft. The background showed a cabin, rustic, isolated, pine trees visible through a window. The woman had his eyes, same green, same slight arch to the eyebrows. The man had his jaw, the set of his shoulders. Looking at them was like seeing himself disassembled and distributed across 2 people. Pressure built in his chest. Not quite pain, not quite anything he had words for. He'd never seen his parents before. Auric said all the photographs had been lost in the fire that killed them when Tyson was 2. Yet he knew, with absolute certainty, that he was looking at his mother and father. The infant was him. How am I so sure? I've never seen them before, but he was. Something deeper than memory recognized these faces. His finger traced the outline of his mother's face. The photograph's surface was smooth, slightly textured. The weight of their absence suddenly felt concrete. All the birthdays and school events and milestones they'd missed, all the questions that had never been answered. He turned to the letter. His hands weren't steady anymore. The handwriting matched the envelope, elegant, flowing, with a slight rightward slant. My dearest Tyson, if you're reading this, then it's your 24th birthday, and it's already begun. The changes, the shift, the awakening of what's inside you. You were born with something dangerous, something remarkable, something the world will fear and others will kill to possess or destroy. Your father and I hoped we would be there to guide you through this transition. If you're reading this letter alone, then I can only assume we failed in that hope. You are a veil walker, Tyson, the last of an ancient lineage that predates written history, We can move through space in ways others cannot. Fold reality, step through the in-between. Some called us gods once. Others called us demons. We are neither. We are simply different. There are coordinates hidden in the patterns you wear on your skin. Ulrich will have made sure of that if he followed our instructions. The tattoo is both map and key to the sanctuary, the only place where our kind might still be safe. But beware the Stellanox covenant. The words were violently crossed out, then rewritten more forcefully. They've hunted us for centuries. They will sense your awakening. They will come for you as they came for us. Trust no one who speaks of balance or containment. Trust no one who promises protection in exchange for compliance. Trust no one who claims our power is too dangerous to exist freely. I wish I could tell you more, prepare you better. Our time is running out. They found us again. Remember who you are, my son. Remember that your power is your birthright. Remember that we loved you enough to die for you. If you're reading this, it's already begun. All my love, Mom. At the bottom, a series of symbols matched his tattoo. Interspersed between them were what looked like coordinates, though in no system Tyson recognized. He read it again, then a third time. Each pass revealed new implications, reshaping everything he thought he knew about himself. Veil Walker. The word meant nothing to him. A term he'd never heard, never imagined. The last of an ancient lineage, not just different, rare, possibly unique. Fold reality. Step through the in-between. A description of what he'd done without trying, without understanding how. They'll come for you as they came for us. The hairs on his neck stood up. Not a fire that killed his parents. People, hunters. This Stellanox covenant. People who'd found his parents and might now be looking for him. People like the courier who appeared and disappeared like smoke. He sat heavily on the bar stool, letter in hand, photograph on the counter. The world tilted, rearranging everything. The words should have seemed absurd, the stuff of bad fantasy novels. Yet they connected to his reality with terrible precision. They explained the inexplicable. How he traveled miles in his sleep. How he'd appeared in a secured building without triggering alarms. How the ring camera recorded no exit. How the courier had vanished. They explained Ulrich's behavior, the relentless training, the constant preparation for invisible threats, the relocations whenever they stayed anywhere too long, the fake IDs and emergency protocols, the endless drills that had seemed like paranoia. Someday you'll understand why this matters, Tyson. Someday you'll thank me. Not paranoia. Protection, not delusion. Preparation. We can move through space in ways others cannot. Not metaphor. Literal description. A bitter laugh escaped him, startling in the quiet apartment. His entire life suddenly recontextualized as preparation for this moment. Ulrich's combat training, the constant relocations, the emphasis on blending in while being ready for anything. This was the anything. Ulrich knew. He always knew. The realization was a punch to the gut. His godfather hadn't been paranoid. He'd been preparing Tyson for very real threats. The tattoo, not just family tradition, but functional. The tattoo is both map and key. Tyson had always found the design strangely precise, more like a diagram than art. Now he understood. Memories surfaced, the tattoo artist studying the design with that odd look before agreeing to do it. Ulrich's insistence that the pattern be followed exactly, the unusual ink that Ulrich had supplied. It's important that it's done right, Tyson. It's more than decoration. At 18, he thought Ulrich was being controlling, but now everything looked different. Every odd behavior, every unexplained precaution, all of it taking on new significance. The letter claimed the tattoo contained coordinates to the sanctuary, a safe place for his kind. Tyson studied the geometric pattern wrapping his forearm. Not random shapes, information. A map encoded in symbols only certain people would recognize. He stared at the letter for hours, reading and rereading. He examined the handwriting, comparing it to the envelope. Studied the paper, heavy, textured, the kind you don't see anymore. The ink suggested a fountain pen. He scrutinized the photograph for details. The cabin looked remote, dense forest, no other structures visible. A wood stove in one corner, simple furniture, the kind of place you'd go to disappear, to hide from people hunting you. His mother's face showed no fear, only joy. His father looked guarded but not frightened. They hadn't known then, or they'd believed themselves safe, at least in that moment. Could Mom have actually written this? How would it find me now after all these years? If the letter was genuine, and he was increasingly certain it was, then his parents' deaths hadn't been accident. They'd been murdered by this Stellanox covenant. Murder disguised as fire. Why wouldn't Ulrich tell me the truth? But even as he asked, he knew the answer. How do you tell a child his parents were murdered for being different? That the same people might come for him? Is that what the courier was? Ulrich's way of finally telling me? But why not come himself? Unless he couldn't. Unless something happened to him too. Don't jump to conclusions. Work with what you know, not what you fear. Finally, he folded the letter carefully and slipped it with the photograph into his pocket. The content spoke too directly to his experience, and if genuine, it might be crucial to his survival. Sunlight had shifted. Afternoon shadows lengthened across the apartment. Hours had passed without his awareness, lost in study. Tyson moved to the window, watching the city continue its ordinary rhythm, oblivious to how his world had shattered. Below, people moved through their lives, tourists photographing landmarks, office workers hurrying to late lunch, delivery cyclists weaving through traffic, none of them knowing that among them walked someone who could fold space, none of them aware of a covenant that hunted people like him. If it's true, if any of it is true. He pressed his palm against the tattoo through his sleeve. The geometric pattern that had been part of him for years suddenly felt different, not physically, conceptually. No longer just ink, information, a map, a legacy from parents he barely remembered carried in his skin, a dangerous gift, a hunted lineage, a hidden sanctuary. It was madness. But so was waking up barefoot in an office building. So was watching a courier vanish from a hallway with no exits. I need to find Ulrich. The thought formed with sudden clarity. His godfather would have answers. The problem wasn't locating him. Tyson knew exactly where Ulrich lived, in his compound deep in the Florida woods. The issue was that they hadn't spoken in months. Their communication had grown sporadic since college, Ulrich reaching out through untraceable numbers, the occasional cryptic email, once a postcard from Montana. Tyson had avoided visiting Florida for years, their relationship strained by his rejection of what he thought was paranoia. The burner phone that vanished the night before had been his most reliable connection. Without it, he had no direct way to reach him. But Ulrich had planned for that. There were protocols, contingencies for lost communication, dead drops and message boards, ways to reconnect if separated. Tyson had dismissed them as paranoid fantasy, but he'd memorized them anyway. Old habits. If I can't reach Ulrich directly, maybe I can reach the sanctuary. Maybe there are others like me who can explain what's happening. He pulled out his laptop, opening a mapping program. If the symbols on his tattoo were coordinates, there had to be a way to decode them. He'd spent his career optimizing logistics routes, finding patterns in complexity. This was just another puzzle. But as he stared at the screen, a new thought occurred. What if he could control the teleportation? What if, instead of waiting for it to happen randomly, he could trigger it deliberately? Go exactly where he wanted. Fold reality. Step through the in-between. His mother's words weren't just description. They were instruction, a how-to guide for an ability she'd expected him to inherit. If I can teleport by accident, maybe I can learn to do it on purpose. The idea was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Terrifying because it meant accepting an identity he'd never known. Exhilarating because it opened possibilities beyond anything he'd imagined. For now, though, he needed more information. Needed to understand what he was, what he could do, what dangers might be coming. And for that, he needed to find either Ulrich or this mysterious sanctuary. His phone buzzed. A text from Brad, you alive? Kessler's asking about the Singapore thing. Tyson stared at the message. The normal world, still expecting normal things. Work deadlines and quarterly forecasts and distribution models. He set the phone face down on the counter. Outside, Manhattan continued its indifferent churn. 8 million people living their ordinary lives, unaware that one of them had just learned he wasn't human in the way they understood it, that his parents had been hunted and killed, that somewhere in the patterns inked into his skin lay a path to answers, or to more danger. The coffee in his mug had gone completely cold. Tyson dumped it in the sink, watching the dark liquid swirl down the drain. It's already begun. His mother's words, written 18 years ago, waiting for this exact moment. For him to wake up barefoot in his office and realize the world was stranger and more dangerous than he'd ever imagined. The tattoo pulsed warm against his skin. Tyson looked at his reflection in the darkened laptop screen. Same face, same eyes, but behind them, something ancient stirring. Something that could fold space and step through reality. Something people would kill for. He pulled out his phone and opened his contacts. Found Ulrich's last known number. Disconnected months ago, but maybe. The call went straight to voicemail. A recorded voice. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. Of course, he tried the backup number. Same result. The emergency email address bounced back undeliverable. Ulrich had gone dark, either by choice or by force, which meant Tyson was alone with this, alone with abilities he didn't understand, hunters he couldn't see, and a letter from a dead mother telling him his life had been a lie. He looked at the photograph one more time, his mother's joy, his father's protective stance, the infant version of himself, unaware of what his future held. They loved you enough to die for you. The weight of that settled in his chest. Not just loved, died. Gave their lives to protect him from whatever the Stellanox covenant was. And now it was his turn to survive. Tyson folded the letter, slipped it in the photograph back into the envelope, and tucked it into the inside pocket of his jacket, close to his heart, the only piece of his parents he'd ever have. The afternoon light was fading, golden hour turning to dusk. Soon it would be night again, and sleep would come. And who knew where he'd wake up this time? He needed a plan, needed to understand the tattoo coordinates, needed to figure out how to control this ability before it controlled him. But first, he needed to eat something. His stomach had been quietly complaining for hours, and his body was running on caffeine and adrenaline. Can't solve impossible problems on an empty stomach. Tyson moved to the kitchen, pulling ingredients from the fridge with mechanical efficiency, eggs, vegetables, bread. Simple, automatic, the kind of task that let his mind work in the background. As he cooked, his thoughts circled back to the courier, those amber eyes, that blank expression, the way he'd vanished like smoke. Was he like me? A veil walker? Or was he something else? Something from the Stellanox covenant, sent to deliver the letter as a warning? As a threat? Trust no one who speaks of balance or containment. His mother's words, a warning that suggested the covenant would come with offers, with promises, that they wouldn't just attack, they'd try to convince him, to control him. The eggs sizzled in the pan. Tyson plated them, added toast, sat at the counter. The food tasted like nothing, but he ate anyway. Fuel, necessary maintenance. His phone buzzed again. Lisa this time. Everything okay? Kessler mentioned family emergency. Let me know if you need anything. He typed back, all good. Thanks. Should be back Monday. The lie came easily. 3 years of practice at being normal, at fitting in. But now every interaction felt like walking a tightrope. One wrong word, one slip, and someone might notice. Might see through the mask to whatever he was becoming. Veil walker. The word still felt foreign, like a costume that didn't quite fit. But his mother had written it with certainty. With pride even. As if it were something to embrace rather than fear. Your power is your birthright. Tyson finished eating, rinsed the plate, loaded the dishwasher. Small tasks, normal routines, anchors to a reality that felt increasingly unstable. The tattoo caught his eye again. He rolled up his sleeve, studying the pattern in the kitchen's bright light. The symbols seemed to shift slightly when he stared too long, as if they contained depth that shouldn't exist on flat skin. His phone sat on the counter, mapping program still open. He pulled it closer, comparing the tattoo symbols to various coordinate systems. Latitude and longitude? No match. UTM coordinates? Wrong format. Military grid reference? Not even close. Whatever system his mother had used, it wasn't standard, which meant decoding it would require what? Expertise he didn't have? A key he didn't possess? Or maybe it required something else, something only a veil walker could access. He touched the tattoo gently, letting his fingers trace the geometric patterns. The warmth beneath his skin intensified slightly, responding to his attention. Fold reality. Step through the in-between. What if the coordinates weren't meant to be read? What if they were meant to be felt? Experienced rather than calculated? The idea was absurd, but no more absurd than teleporting in his sleep. Tyson closed his eyes, focusing on the warmth spreading from the tattoo. trying to sense what? Direction? Distance? Some kind of pull toward wherever the sanctuary was? Nothing, just warmth and the steady beat of his pulse. He opened his eyes, frustrated. Whatever ability let him teleport, it wasn't something he could consciously access. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Maybe I'm broken somehow? Wrong. But his mother's letter suggested otherwise. Suggested this was normal for their kind. That the awakening happened at 24, right on schedule, which meant others had gone through this. Others who learned to control it, to understand it. Others who might still be alive at the sanctuary. If I can find it. Tyson looked at the clock. 6:47 p.m. Outside, the city had fully transitioned to night. Lights blazing in windows, headlights streaming through streets, the ordinary world indifferent to his crisis. He had maybe 4 or 5 hours before exhaustion would force him to sleep. 4 or 5 hours to figure out how to control an ability that had operated on pure instinct. Or I could just let it happen. See where I wake up. Follow the trail wherever it leads. The thought was tempting, but also terrifying. What if he woke up somewhere dangerous? What if the Stellanox Covenant was waiting? What if Auric is waiting? That thought stopped him cold. What if his godfather had triggered this somehow? Sent the courier, arranged the letter, set everything in motion to force Tyson's hand? It would be exactly the kind of manipulative, paranoid thing Auric would do. Push Tyson into a corner, force him to embrace abilities he'd been denying, all while claiming it was for his own good. Tyson's jaw tightened. If Auric was behind this, there would be words. Loud, angry words. But first, he had to survive long enough to have that conversation. He pulled out his laptop again, this time searching for anything related to Veilwalker or Stellanox Covenant. Predictably, nothing came up. No Wikipedia entries. No conspiracy theory forums. Not even a stray mention in fiction. Either the names were too obscure, or someone had scrubbed them from the internet, or they're protected by something I don't understand. Hidden from normal searches. He tried variations, different spellings, related terms, still nothing. Finally, he searched for unexplained disappearances, people vanishing without trace, cases where someone appeared miles from where they should be. Pages and pages of results. Most easily explained, some genuinely mysterious, but none that matched his experience exactly. None that suggested a pattern of people who could fold space. Either he really was the last Veilwalker, or they'd gotten very good at hiding. Tyson closed the laptop, rubbing his eyes. The exhaustion was creeping back in, despite the anxiety thrumming through his system. His body wanted sleep. His mind wanted answers. He couldn't have both. Fine, I'll stay up. Push through it. Wait until I understand more before risking another uncontrolled jump. Coffee. He'd need more coffee. As he stood to refill his mug, the lights flickered. Just once, barely noticeable. But in that split second, Tyson felt it. The same sensation from the bar. The world slightly out of phase, reality humming at a frequency just off from normal. The tattoo flared warm, and somewhere deep in his chest, something ancient and patient whispered. Soon, Chapter 3, The Impossible Gap. Sleep came hard and deep. Tyson collapsed into bed at 11:48 p.m., still wearing his jeans. The apartment was dark except for the blue glow of his phone's lock screen casting shadows across the ceiling. His body felt heavy, limbs sinking into the mattress like anchors. The strange sensations from the bar, the blurring hand, the pulsing lights, receded into background noise as exhaustion won. No dreams, no nightmares. Just the black void of complete shutdown. Cold tile bit into his bare feet. Tyson's eyes snapped open. Not the gradual surfacing of normal waking. This was instant and total, like someone had flipped a switch in his brain. He stood motionless, heart hammering, trying to understand what his senses were telling him. Wrong. Everything was wrong. The air tasted recycled, that flat, processed quality of industrial HVAC running 24/7. Chemical cleaner sharp in his nostrils, mixing with the metallic tang of ductwork and filtered air. Not his apartment. His apartment smelled like coffee and worn leather and the faint mustiness of old books. He wasn't in his bedroom. The light was wrong, too. Cold blue-gray illumination washing everything in that specific color temperature of after-hours office spaces. Emergency lighting. His eyes adjusted and the room took shape around him. Glass partitions, ergonomic chairs tucked under desks. 3 computer monitors dark and reflective on each workstation. floor-to-ceiling windows showing the Manhattan skyline, buildings lit up like circuit boards against the night sky. His office. No, not just his office. He was standing in the middle of the 34th floor of Meridian Logistics, barefoot in sweatpants and his faded MIT shirt, the one with the small bleach stain on the hem that he only wore to sleep. What the? His voice came out rough, too loud in the silence. The floor plan stretched away in both directions, rows of workstations bathed in that eerie emergency lighting, shadows too sharp, everything too still. Tyson looked down at himself, bare feet on cold tile, gray sweatpants, the MIT shirt, no shoes, no jacket, no explanation. His badge was at home, on his dresser, next to his wallet and keys. This floor required keycard access. The elevator required keycard access. The building itself was locked down after midnight. There was no way he could have gotten in here, yet here he was. Breathe. Tyson forced air into his lungs, slow and controlled. The instinct to panic pressed against his chest like a physical weight, but he pushed it back. Panic meant missing details. Missing details meant verify what you can. The thought surfaced in Ulrich's voice, and Tyson shoved it aside. He didn't need his godfather's paranoid training right now. He needed to figure out what the hell was happening. Phone? His hand went to his pocket and found it. His phone, still there, solid and real. Small mercy. He pulled it out with fingers that wanted to shake. 2:17 a.m. The lock screen showed no notifications. Battery at 64%. Everything was normal, except for the fact that he was standing in his office in the middle of the night wearing pajamas. Tyson's reflection stared back at him from a darkened monitor. Pale, eyes too wide, hair sticking up at odd angles. The face of someone who'd just woken up somewhere impossible. I was in bed. I went to sleep. I was home. The memory was solid. Coming home from the bar, the strange Uber ride, the unsettled feeling as he locked his door, changing into sleep clothes, checking his phone one last time. The clock read 11:48 p.m. as his eyes finally closed. And now this. Tyson walked to the windows, his bare feet silent on the floor. The city sprawled below. Manhattan at night, millions of lights arranged in that familiar grid. He could see his neighborhood from here, the general direction of his apartment building. 15 blocks north, 4 blocks west. 15 blocks he hadn't walked. The tattoo on his forearm caught his attention. The geometric patterns his mother had insisted he get when he turned 18. Black lines forming symbols that looked like a hybrid of circuit boards and mathematical proofs. The tattoo shop had been hours outside the city, the kind of place you'd never find if you weren't looking for it. The artist had barely spoken, just traced the design onto his skin with unsettling precision. Keep it clean. Don't let it fade. Your mother knew what she was doing. Ulrich's words, years ago. Tyson had always thought the tattoo was sentimental, his mother's way of leaving something permanent with him before she died. But now, standing in the impossible quiet of his office, the black lines felt warm beneath his skin. Not painful, just present, alive in a way ink shouldn't be. He looked away. The phone? Check the phone. Concrete data, concrete timeline. That's what mattered now. His last text showed 11:58 p.m., a goodnight message to Brad that he'd sent half asleep. Before that, his Uber receipt. Before that, the group chat from the bar. He opened Google Maps, pulled up his location history. The blue dot of his position tracked backward through time. His apartment from 11:48 p.m. until, he scrolled forward, until 2:16 a.m. No movement. The location pin stayed fixed at his building for over 2 hours. Then suddenly at 2:17 a.m., it jumped. No transition, no path traced between points. Just his apartment, then Meridian Logistics. Impossible. His health app told the same story. Heart rate normal throughout the evening, slightly elevated at the bar, settling down as he got home. Then at 11:48 p.m., the data just stopped. A flat gap in the timeline, no readings at all. Then at 2:16 a.m., his heart rate spiked to 142 BPM and stayed elevated. The exact moment he'd woken up here. Tyson sat down in the nearest chair before his legs could give out. The leather was cool through his thin shirt. His hands gripped the armrests, anchoring himself to something physical and real. Run through the possibilities. Drugs. Someone could have drugged him at the bar, taken him here as some kind of prank, but his apartment had been locked, chain engaged, security system armed. And the security team here would have footage of someone dragging an unconscious man through the building. That didn't happen without being seen. Dissociation. Some kind of psychological break where he'd walked here himself without remembering. But his feet were clean except for the dust from this floor. No dirt, no wear. And the location data showed him at home until the moment he appeared here. Someone moving him while he was asleep. Drugged, carried here, then. What? They broke into his apartment, somehow bypassed his security system, carried him 15 blocks to a secure building, got him past security and up 34 floors, then left him standing in the middle of the office? Ridiculous. All of it. Nothing made sense, which left only one explanation. Something impossible had happened. The tattoo pulsed warm against his skin. Tyson stood. He needed to leave. Needed to get back to familiar ground, to his apartment where he could think without the weight of this place pressing down on him. The security cameras had probably already logged him here. Weird enough to explain, impossible if he stayed longer. He moved toward the emergency stairwell, avoiding the main elevator bank with its camera-monitored call buttons. The door's crash bar was cold under his palm. It opened silently, revealing the concrete shaft of the stairwell. 24 floors down. Barefoot. The first flight wasn't bad. The second made him aware of how cold the concrete was. By the fifth, his feet ached. By the 10th, each step sent sharp jolts up his legs. But the physical discomfort was almost welcome, proof that his body still worked by normal rules, that not everything had gone sideways. He kept his pace steady, hands sliding along the metal railing, mind working through the implications. If someone had moved him, there would be footage. If he'd walked here himself, there would be a path in the location data. The gap in both meant neither of those things happened, which meant he'd gotten from his bed to his office without traveling the space between. The lobby level. Tyson paused at the door, listening. Silence on the other side. The night security guard would be at the front desk, probably watching screens or reading. He couldn't just walk through looking like this. He pulled out his phone, called an Uber. 3 minutes away. Close enough. Tyson pushed through the door into the lobby and froze. The security desk sat empty. Not just unmanned, but abandoned. The chair pushed back, a half-full coffee cup still steaming next to a paperback novel splayed open. The monitors showed their rotating feeds of empty hallways and dark offices. No sign of where the guard had gone. Don't think about it. Just move. He crossed the marble floor quickly, feet silent on stone. The revolving door's glass reflected his pale face, his disheveled appearance. He looked exactly like what he was, someone who didn't belong here. The October air hit him like a slap. Cold enough to hurt, sharp with that metallic pre-rain smell. The street was empty except for a taxi idling at the light 2 blocks down. Tyson's Uber pulled up 30 seconds later, a gray Camry with a dent in the rear bumper and a driver who barely glanced at him. Rough night? The driver asked as Tyson slid into the back seat. Something like that. The city passed outside the windows. Familiar streets, familiar buildings. Normal. Everything normal except Tyson himself, sitting in the back of an Uber at 2:30 in the morning, wearing pajamas with dirty feet. His phone buzzed. A text from Brad. Birthday hangover treating you right? Tyson stared at the message. Brad didn't know. None of them knew. Whatever had happened, it had happened silently, invisibly. Just Tyson and the impossible gap in his timeline. He didn't respond. His apartment building appeared ahead, the same brick facade, the same warm lobby lights. The Uber pulled up to the curb. Have a better night, man, the driver said as Tyson got out. Yeah, thanks. The lobby doors were locked. Tyson pressed the buzzer, waiting in the cold. Through the glass, he saw James the doorman look up from his desk, confusion crossing his face before he stood and came to unlock the door. Mr. Volt? James's eyes took in Tyson's appearance, the bare feet, the sweatpants, the middle-of-the-night timing. Is everything all right? Fine, just... Tyson forced his voice to stay casual. Couldn't sleep, went for a walk. Without shoes? Yeah, bad idea. My feet agree with you. James's expression showed every ounce of doubt he was too professional to voice, but he stepped back, holding the door open. Well, welcome back. Get some rest. Will do. The elevator ride felt endless. Tyson watched the floor numbers tick upward, each one bringing him closer to whatever waited in his apartment. The doors finally opened on his floor. His door at the end of the hall, exactly as he left it. He reached for his keys and stopped. No keys. Those were inside, on the dresser with his wallet and badge. The door was locked. Of course it was locked. He'd locked it himself, engaged the chain, set the security system. There was no way to get inside without keys. Tyson stood in the hallway, staring at his own door, and felt something close to hysteria bubble up in his chest. He'd teleported out. Fine. Apparently that was possible now. But he couldn't teleport back in, which meant he was locked out of his own apartment at 2:45 in the morning, wearing pajamas, with no way to explain this to building management. Think. The spare key. He kept a spare hidden in the fire extinguisher cabinet down the hall, rubber banded to the bracket, another of Ulrich's paranoid suggestions that had seemed excessive until exactly now. Tyson retrieved the key with shaking hands. The lock turned smoothly. The door swung open and caught on the chain. The chain was still engaged. From the inside, he stared at the 2-inch gap, at the chain stretched tight across it. The apartment beyond was dark, quiet. No sign of anyone, no explanation for how the chain had engaged itself, unless it had been engaged before he left, unless he left without opening the door. Tyson's hand went to his phone, pulling up the Ring doorbell footage. The app loaded slowly, each second stretching. Then the video appeared, time-stamped, date-stamped, indisputable. Levinson entering, locking the door behind him. The 12 cameras' view of the hallway outside, empty and still. 1 a.m., still empty, still empty. No footage of him leaving. No footage of anyone entering. Just an empty hallway and a locked door, and Tyson 15 blocks away in his office building. He reached through the gap, fumbling with the chain. It slid free. The door swung open fully. The apartment was exactly as he'd left it. His jacket draped over the kitchen chair. His keys and wallet on the dresser, catching the ambient light from the windows. The bed sheets rumpled where his body had lain, the impression of his weight still visible in the mattress. Everything exactly as it should be, except for the man who should have been sleeping there. Tyson locked the door, reset the chain, reactivated the security system. Each action precise, methodical. His hands had stopped shaking. The initial shock was fading, replaced by something harder, colder. He sat on the edge of his bed, phone in hand, pulling up the footage again, watching himself come home, watching the empty hallway, watching the impossible gap where he should have left but didn't, the location data, the health app gap, the Ring footage, the locked door with the chain still on. All of it pointed to the same conclusion. He had been in 2 places at once. No, not at once. He'd been in his apartment, and then without any transition, without crossing the space between, he'd been at his office. Tyson looked at his forearm. The tattoo seemed darker in the low light, the geometric patterns catching shadows in ways they shouldn't. He touched it gently, feeling the warmth beneath his skin. Your mother knew what she was doing. What had she known? What had she done to him? The questions piled up like cars in a collision. But beneath them, one certainty. This would happen again. Whatever had pulled him from his bed to his office, it wasn't a one-time glitch. It was something waking up. And he had no idea how to stop it. He lay back on his bed, still wearing his sweatpants and MIT shirt. His feet ached from the barefoot descent. His mind raced with implications and impossibilities. But exhaustion had its own weight, and eventually it pulled him under again. This time, when sleep came, he dreamed of geometric patterns that moved like living things, of his mother's face, blurred by time and childhood memory, saying something he couldn't hear, of Ulrich's voice cutting through darkness. The world is stranger than they tell you. Stay ready. And of a sensation like falling and flying simultaneously, the feeling of being everywhere and nowhere at once. When his alarm screamed at 6 a.m., sunlight was streaming through the windows. The city had woken up, 8 million people starting another day. Another Thursday, another rotation of the ordinary world where impossible things didn't happen. Tyson silenced the alarm and stared at the ceiling. Chapter 5. Shift days passed. Tyson returned to work, to routine, to the patterns that had defined his existence. But nothing was the same. His Monday commute felt like playing a role in someone else's life. Same elevator with its brushed steel walls, same fluorescent lights buzzing at the edge of hearing, Same colleagues with their weekend stories. The break room still smelled of burnt coffee and microwave leftovers. His fingers still caught on that rough edge where the laminate peeled away from his desk. Same Tyson Volt, logistics analyst, ID badge clipped precisely to his lapel, except now he knew it was all bullshit. Funny how you can spend years building a life, and it takes exactly one teleportation to reveal it as a bad cover story. The spreadsheets that once absorbed his attention now seemed trivial. Numbers blurred. His mind wandered to impossible questions. How did he move from one place to another without crossing the space between? Could he control it? Was he the only one? The letter stayed in his nightstand drawer, tucked beneath old utility bills, but its words had burned into his memory. Veilwalker, the last of an ancient lineage. We can move through space in ways others cannot. The terms still felt foreign, yet they described exactly what was happening to him. The letter had anticipated his experiences before they occurred, which meant its other warnings might be equally accurate. They've hunted us for centuries. They will come for you. At night, he took out the photograph, studied the faces of his parents under the warm glow of his bedside lamp. His mother's eyes, so like his own, the same shade of green with the same slight tilt at the corners. His father's jawline visible in Tyson's reflection each morning. They looked ordinary, happy, unaware of what would happen to them. Did they know what would happen to him? Did they experience the same disorienting shifts through space? Questions without answers, but the photograph gave him an anchor, proof that he wasn't entirely alone in this, even if those who shared it were long gone. Monday morning found him at the crosswalk at 42nd and Madison, mind churning over logistics algorithms and impossible physics in equal measure. Spring air carried coffee from a nearby cart, mingling with exhaust and the indefinable energy of 8 million people beginning their week. Yellow taxis jockeyed for position. A construction crew jackhammered concrete half a block away. One instant, he was stepping onto the curb. The next, he stood in a narrow alley between brick buildings he didn't recognize. No transition, no sensation of movement. The smell of coffee and exhaust replaced by garbage and stale urine. The soundscape shifted from traffic to distant echoes, dripping water somewhere to his left. The sun that had been warming his face was gone, his skin suddenly chilled. Rough, damp concrete beneath his feet instead of smooth sidewalk. Tyson froze, heart hammering, wide awake, broad daylight. This is happening, right now, in public. He'd displaced in his sleep before, waking in his office that first time. There had been momentary glitches, fleeting sensations of unreality. But nothing this dramatic, this unmistakable, this impossible to rationalize away. A homeless man slumped against the wall looked up, roomy eyes widening, half-empty bottle dangling from dirt-encrusted fingers, mouth opening in a perfect O of surprise. The hell did you come from? Tyson didn't answer, couldn't. The question hung in the air between them, as unanswerable as it was justified. He moved to the end of the alley, emerging onto a street nearly 20 blocks from where he'd been seconds before. The traffic pattern confirmed it. He'd somehow traversed a significant portion of Manhattan instantaneously. He pressed his back against the building. 3-count inhale, hold. 3-count exhale. The rough brick caught at his suit jacket. A businessman gave him an odd look as he passed, noticing the too rapid breathing, the slight sheen of cold sweat. This is happening. It's real, and I have no control over it. Tyson lifted his wrist. 8:47 a.m. The shift had taken no measurable time. I'm going to be late for work. That's what I'm worried about? Being late when I just teleported across the city? He almost laughed, his mind seeking normality, routine, anything to anchor itself against the impossible. He oriented himself. The nearest subway entrance was 2 blocks east. If he hurried, he could still make the 9:15 status meeting. Kessler would notice his lateness, but that was manageable, preferable to trying to explain the unexplainable. As he walked, Tyson found himself eyeing strangers with new wariness. If the letter was true, if there really were people who hunted his kind, how would he identify them? What distinguished a random passerby from a threat? He arrived at the office 22 minutes late, offering a brief apology about subway delays without making eye contact. The meeting continued. Tyson contributed where expected, his professional mask firmly in place. That night, under the shower spray, Tyson watched his forearm dissolve, not metaphorically, actually become transparent, the white tile visible through suddenly ghostly flesh. Water droplets passed through where muscle and bone should have stopped them. For 3 heartbeats, he existed in some liminal state between solid and not. No pain, just pins and needles, like a limb waking up. Then solid again. Tyson stared at his arm, half expecting it to pull the same trick. "Well, that's new," he said to the empty bathroom. "All those years learning to disarm attackers, memorizing escape routes, mastering surveillance detection. Turns out the most effective escape technique was hardwired into his DNA." The cosmic joke wasn't lost on him. The shifts accelerated through the week. Wednesday, coffee shop line to office desk in an eye blink. One moment the barista was explaining why oat milk costs extra. Then suddenly he was staring at yesterday's spreadsheet, the phantom taste of coffee lingering on his tongue. Thursday, sunset from apartment window to East River Promenade. One moment admiring rooftop silhouettes through glass, the next breathing salt air that coated his tongue with brine, wind whipping his hair. Friday, budget meeting to rooftop garden. Finance VP droning about Q3 projections, then suddenly standing among potted plants 17 floors up. That time he slipped back downstairs before anyone noticed, muttering something about bathroom breaks and bad sushi, but his body had other ideas. The world flickered around him, the fluorescent station lights strobing in his vision. The hunter's shout seemed to come from underwater, distorted and distant. The last thing Tyson saw before reality shifted was the look of frustration on the lead hunter's face as his quarry began to disappear. Then reality shifted. Humid air replaced the stale subway atmosphere in an instant. Not one fluorescent lights and metal screeching, replaced by dappled sunlight and the distant call of unfamiliar birds. One moment crammed among 100 commuters, the next standing alone amid ancient cypress trees rising like forgotten guardians. Disorientation slammed into him first, the vertigo of instantaneous transition from city to wilderness. Then came the second wave. The tranquilizer surging through his bloodstream, already claiming territory in his nervous system. A quick self-assessment revealed no teleportation injuries, just the same body suddenly relocated with pharmaceutical chains rapidly binding it. Thoughts fractured at their edges, limbs responding with diminishing loyalty. Nearby frogs erupted in alarm as he lurched forward, their synchronized croaks reverberating across the still pool, a ripple cut through the murky surface 10 feet away, muscle and scale gliding beneath, cold reptilian eyes breached, assessing him with patient hunger. Alligator, because apparently the universe hasn't completely emptied its bag of jokes. All around him, cypress knees jutted from the muck like skeletal fingers. Gray-green moss draped from gnarled branches overhead, swaying in the humid breeze. Every breath filled his lungs with primordial air, a cloying miasma of stagnation, decay, and the unmistakable copper penny tang of old water. Fine dry ground, fast. An underwater root snagged his foot. Balance abandoned him entirely. He plunged face first into the fetid pool, mouth filling with swamp essence, earthy, organic, with hints of decomposition and mineral-rich silt. Gagging, he fought against gravity with arms rapidly losing their strength. The backpack transformed to concrete against his spine, dragging him downward. Probably less than 60 seconds remaining if I'm lucky. Through vision now smeared at the edges, a small island appeared. A raised hummock topped with a massive oak perhaps 30 feet distant. He stumbled toward it, each footstep becoming an equation his brain struggled to solve. His legs moved as though mired in setting cement rather than mere bog water. Commands from brain to muscle arrived garbled and incomplete. The pistol in his pack might as well have orbited Saturn for all the good it would do now. Almost. Keep going. The slight incline to dry ground became Everest. Mud sucked greedily at his waterlogged boots. Finally surrendering to gravity's insistence, he dropped to hands and knees, crawling the final distance. Rough oak bark scraped his palm as fingers clutched for purchase. His upper body surrendered next, collapsing him sideways onto relatively dry earth. Rich loam and decaying oak leaves filled his nostrils, almost pleasant compared to the bog's fetid exhalations. Eyelids rebelled against his commands to stay open. Chemical darkness advanced from his peripheral vision like spilled ink bleeding across parchment. Each heartbeat pushed more sedative through his system, painting consciousness black one pulse at a time. Where am I? The question drifted through fading awareness. Surrounding flora suggested deep south, Georgia, Florida, perhaps Louisiana. By some cosmic joke, maybe his haywire ability had accidentally delivered him near the compound. Congratulations on inventing the world's least reliable GPS, Volt. From somewhere deep inside, inappropriate laughter bubbled up, one harsh bark escaping his lips to shatter the cathedral silence. Fuck it, he managed, tongue thick and uncooperative. Chapter 7, Homecoming. Consciousness returned in fragments. First, the sensation of rough fabric beneath his cheek. Then, the scent of wood smoke and pine, the distant call of an owl, pain radiating through his body in dull waves. Tyson opened his eyes to a single lamp burning low on a wooden table. The ceiling above him was unfinished pine, crossbeams dark with age. A cabin, not just any cabin. He tried to sit up. His muscles screamed in protest. Don't! The voice came from the shadows beyond the lamp's reach, low, graveled with age and caution. The sedative they used is still clearing your system. Ulrich. The old man moved into the light. Steel gray hair cropped military short, beard unkempt but functional. Scars trailing down his left cheek and neck, reminders of battles long past. His dark brown eyes scanned Tyson with clinical precision, cataloging injuries, assessing status. How did you find me? Tyson managed, his throat raw. You found me. Ulrich poured water from a metal pitcher, offered the cup with a steady hand. Appeared at the edge of my perimeter, half conscious, triggered one of my motion sensors. Ulrich moved to a small desk in the corner, turning a laptop so Tyson could see. The screen displayed a grid of security camera feeds, camouflaged hunting cameras mounted in trees throughout the surrounding woods. One frame showed a frozen image of Tyson, collapsed against a pine tree, the timestamp reading 2:17 a.m. You navigated 1,100 miles with no training, no preparation, Ulrich continued. Impressive, if reckless. Tyson drank, the cool water a blessed relief. It's real then, what the letter said, what I can do. Ulrich's expression remained neutral, but something flickered behind his eyes. Your father said this might happen one day. The words hit Tyson like a physical blow. All these years, and Ulrich had known, had always known. You lied to me. Tyson's voice was dangerously calm. I protected you, Ulrich corrected, setting his jaw. From them, from yourself, until you were ready. Ready for what? To be hunted? To have my life torn apart? Anger gave Tyson strength. He pushed himself upright, ignoring the vertigo. They called me Veil Walker, the same word from my mother's letter. Ulrich nodded once, then moved to a wooden trunk against the far wall. From it, he withdrew a small UV lamp. Show me the letter. Tyson hesitated, then reached for his duffel bag beside the cot. The letter was where he'd left it, carefully folded in an inside pocket. He handed it over, watching as Ulrich's weathered fingers traced the yellowed paper with something like reverence. Elena, Ulrich murmured, almost to himself. Then louder. Your mother was always careful, always planning ahead. He clicked on the UV lamp, passing its purple glow over the letter. Hidden markings appeared, symbols, coordinates of designs that matched sections of Tyson's tattoo, but with additional elements previously invisible. What is it? Tyson leaned forward. The rest of the map. Ulrich's eyes remained on the glowing symbols, and a warning they were closer than we thought. When the world reassembled itself, Tyson was standing in his apartment, keys cutting into his palm where he'd clenched them. The transition from crowded street to silent living room was so abrupt his ears rang with the absence of noise. Street cacophony replaced by the gentle hum of his refrigerator, the tick of the wall clock, the soft whir of his laptop's cooling fan. The smell of the city, food carts and exhaust and crowds, gave way to the familiar scent of his apartment. Laundry detergent, the faint lemon of cleaning products, a hint of coffee from that morning. His hardwood floor felt solid beneath his feet after the uneven concrete. Air conditioning raised goosebumps on skin that had been warm from exertion moments before. His pulse hammered. Not a random shift this time. His body had recognized mortal danger and responded. He moved to the window, scanning the street below. Nothing unusual visible. No suspicious vehicles. No men in forgettable clothing. But the encounter left no room for denial. The hunter had known him, had been looking specifically for him, had reached for a weapon the moment he confirmed Tyson's identity, which meant the letter wasn't fiction. Everything in it was true. His mother's warnings, her explanations, her fears, all validated, which meant the threat was true as well. Stellanox Covenant. They've hunted us for centuries. They will come for you. The words took on new urgency. This wasn't theoretical anymore, wasn't a strange phenomenon he could observe from a distance. It was immediate, physical danger from an organized group that somehow knew what he was, knew how to find him, and intended him harm. Tyson checked his locks, then laughed bitterly at the futility. What good were locks when he could walk through space? If he could teleport into his apartment, couldn't others with similar abilities teleport in as well? No. That doesn't track. If they could teleport, the man wouldn't have needed a weapon. He would have just appeared beside me, which means they hunt Veilwalkers, but aren't Veilwalkers themselves. Small comfort. His pursuers had limitations he did not, but they also had experience, organization, and clear intent. He sank onto his couch, the reality finally sinking in completely. His old life was over. The carefully constructed normalcy, the illusion of being just another person in a city of millions, gone. The career he'd built, the apartment he'd made his home, the routine he'd established, all suddenly precarious, temporary. He was being hunted, and he had no idea how to fight back. Tyson grabbed his go-bag from the closet, packed days ago in a moment of what he thought was paranoia, but now recognized as foresight. Cash, clothes, essentials, the letter and photograph. His fingers checked the contents automatically. As he headed for the door, Tyson looked down at the tattoo on his forearm. All these years, he thought it was just a strange design his guardian had insisted on for his 18th birthday. Now he studied the geometric pattern with new eyes, tracing his finger along the slightly raised lines of ink. The black pattern stood out starkly against his arm, the edges still crisp after all these years. There are coordinates hidden in the patterns you wear on your skin, a map to somewhere safe. If only he knew what it meant. Tyson shouldered his bag, hand on the doorknob. The cool metal warmed quickly under his grip. The carefully constructed normalcy of Tyson Volt, logistics analyst, was officially deceased. What replaced it remained to be seen. He gave his apartment one final scan, inhaling deeply to capture its familiar scent. Home, safety, the life he'd built, knowing he might never return. 3 years of pretending to be ordinary ended by the truth written in his DNA. With the precise economy of movement that characterized everything he did, Tyson stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind him. The hollow sound of the latch catching echoed briefly in the empty corridor. No dramatic glance back, no moment of hesitation.
Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, step into the story. Like, share, and subscribe to Story Pulse Studios, where imagination comes to life.